ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Glory be to Allah, all praise to Allah. There is no God but Allah. Allah is great.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to the continuation of our series dealing with the Islamic framework. And the series that we are dealing with has been looking at all the different systems or all the different structures that make up Islam. And we said that Islam is the fastest growing religion and the most sustainable belief system in the entire universe. And some people look at me like, universe? Yes, it's sustainable in the entire universe. It's the only religion that makes common sense about everything that we have. Science and religion work together perfectly. Politics and religion work together perfectly. Economics and religion work together perfectly. In Islam, it's the only self-sustaining religion. So we said that Islam in many ways is like a flower. It has many petals. If you take away just one petal and look at it in isolation, yes, you still know it's a flower, but it works better together. It looks so much nicer together. Now, we've been looking in this series at different topics, and last time we looked at the political system, that Islam has a political system, how it works together with many other elements. It doesn't work in isolation, like we found with all the topics that we've been dealing with so far. But today we're going to continue looking at the political system within Islam, and we're going to be looking at some of the other areas that we didn't touch on last week, inshallah. Now, there are two laws that run the whole of the political system in Islam. There are two sides to the same coin. They're not two polar opposites. Like many countries in the world, we spoke about last time, and we said that many countries in the world, they say that you need to separate religion and politics. And we saw what happened in countries that tried to do that. It just destroyed the entire system. There was fighting between the religious lobbyists and fighting between the political lobbyists, and they've been at loggerhead with each other ever since. Many countries are trying to bring the political system and the religious system back together again, and they're having opposition with it. Well, most of those countries never had really a proper religious system anyway with a political system. They were always at loggerheads with each other, because most countries, their political system is in opposition to the religious system. In Islam, we don't find it like that. But there are two sides of the same coin in Islam. There are man-made laws, and there are divine laws. There are laws that are there for man, and there are laws that are there that have been given by Allah. Now, the man-made laws, they will give a solution that will basically resolve an immediate problem. Like you'll see, the Constitutional Court will be called together in different countries to resolve an immediate problem, something that they don't know how to resolve. Some of you remember, perhaps it's still going on in the news now, I don't know. You'll remember there was that man who started the WikiLeaks. He started exposing secrets that were happening in economic, secrets are happening in government, secrets that are happening in the wars, things like that. And he has released new documentation onto his website all the time. Now he's hiding away. Well, he was at the time of this recording. He was hiding away in some little room somewhere. And so they had to get a group of people together in different countries and had to make up a solution for the immediate problem of what he was doing. And some countries have already changed their laws. In fact, they can tap your cell phone, they can read your emails, and they can do all these things because the law allows them to do that. And so these are man-made laws that change according to the situation. But divine laws are different to this. And we find that there is a solution to an eternal problem that remains the same forever. So they don't change according to whatever whims or whims come up in society. So these divine laws, they have a solution that have eternal promise, have eternal solutions to problems that mankind may come across 10,000 years ago or have 10 billion years into the future. The same solution will be there. The solution for mankind, the solution to man's problems. If we look at man-made laws, many of these man-made laws are to safeguard the interests of a select few. If you're a criminal, they don't help you, do they? these laws that have been put into place by man. As a criminal, they don't help you because you want to break the law. So they're only protecting those people who don't break the law. Not that I'm saying that for the criminal here, but I'm just giving you an example how man-made laws protect only a select few. Perhaps in my country, for example, they had a very, very bad system. It was a system that was brought there by the colonial British when they settled there. And the Afrikaans, not the indigenous people also came to the country, they kept that British colonial system there. And that system was a system called apartheid, or separation by races. So they could separate by law different races because of the color or the pigmentation of your skin. And they classified people in my country into about 15 different groups. So it wasn't just simply a black or white, but they separated people even further into different racial profilings. And so they divided these people, and so the laws of that country separated people. They were man-made laws, and they safeguarded the interest of a few people because of the color of their skin. They divided them. They divided the nation. They divided the people. I still am classified in my country as not a white person because I have a mixed heritage. And so in my country, I'm classified as another Indian. But we see that there are many different types of classifications that laws have loopholes in or problems with because they have to change the whole time. But we don't find this with divine laws. Divine laws safeguard the interests of the whole of humanity. They don't just safeguard the interests of a few people or because of a pigmentation of your skin or because the interests of a certain society or group of people. There's no class system in the divine laws of Allah. The divine laws of Allah safeguard the interests for the whole of creation, the whole of humanity. They safeguard the interests of things that we don't even know or understand or will ever understand in our human bodies. You know, sometimes we as human beings suffer from delusions of grandeur. We think we're greater than we actually are. We think we're smarter than we actually are. We know only a tip of the iceberg of what there is to know about what Allah has created. We're only barely figuring out things now. We're still very, very primitive as a society, as a group of people. Yes, we know some things, and we think we're very smart about that, but we're pretty stupid still. I mean, we're quite ignorant. And we must be careful that we don't think we are too smart for ourselves. You know, this is why we need to understand that divine laws know more than we do. Our human laws are fickle. They change all the time. Now, if we look at the man-made laws that we see in society, most of the man-made laws, they are prejudiced laws. They suit a certain group of people. Maybe the rich, maybe the bankers, maybe the people who own property, maybe the elite. If you go to some countries, you will see that on one side of the street you've got people living in slums, and on the other side of the street you've got people who are staying in million-dollar mansions. And so you'll find that the laws are protecting those people in the million-dollar mansions and not the people living on the other side of the street. But this is not the case with divine laws. You see, divine laws do not care about whether you're rich or poor. They don't care if you come from a wealthy background or you come from a poor background. They are all the same because divine laws are free of personal prejudices. They're not interested in what your personal preference is. Divine law goes beyond that. Remember, we spoke about a couple of episodes ago. We spoke about how we as human beings are linear beings. In other words, we have a linear existence. We have a beginning and we have an end. Allah is not linear. He has no beginning, He has no end, so He's not linear. But we have a linear existence. We cannot bring the past into the present. The present remains the present and the past remains the past. And the future is unknowable or unseeable or unattainable. But for Allah, there is no difference between the past, present, and future. He is unconfined to a linear existence. But Allah is beyond linear existence. And so we that live in this linear existence are bound by the rules of this linear existence. And so we have prejudices, and we have problems, and we have issues that we would like to force onto society. But as we spoke about a few episodes ago, if we think back and we had to take out just Adolf Hitler, many people would love to do this, but if we did it, and we were able to go back on that linear existence and take out Adolf Hitler from the history books, he never happened. Nothing that he did ever took place. We wouldn't have known how dangerous warfare is. We wouldn't have known how terrible it is to be racist and prejudiced, how the rest of the world put legislations and rules in place to prevent someone like that ever coming up again, how we have watchdogs who prevent dictators from taking over, all because of one man in history. Removing him because of our human intellect would have destroyed so much. When we see a nation be destroyed, we go, how can a loving God destroy a nation? It's because we're looking at it from a linear perspective. Allah does not see things from a linear perspective. He sees things from a divine perspective. We don't understand what would have happened if that group would have survived. If they had survived, how it would have ripple effect through the whole of humanity and destroyed trillions of people, not 100,000 or 1,000 people. So divine justice, divine politics is totally different. Divine law is totally different to human existence and human understanding and human politics. If we look at man-made laws, it does not hold the spirit of truth behind it. The spirit of truth is not in, and when I mean this, I'll explain this to you. It does not possess a spiritual truth, a spiritual reverence, a reward system. Man-made laws does not possess spiritual reverence. They do not hold anything sacred from that point of view. They do not look at laws from a spiritual perspective. It purely looks at it from, did you commit the crime or didn't you? Answer yes or no to the judge. Your Honor, he's not answering the question. Don't we see how this works in our political system and our legal system in the world today? It's not like that in Islam. In Islam, it's totally different because that is part of the law. That is part of their political system in Islam. Did you know that? That's fascinating. It should excite us when we realize how Islam is so different. Islam rewards spiritual involvement in the legal or divine laws of Allah. And it also punishes people who break those laws of Allah. If you had to say, I'm in this court here today for stealing, but I do not believe in God, what will the judge do? Does the judge even consider that? He doesn't even care whether you believe in God or not. All he is interested in is, did you steal that product? But in Islam, that is part of the divine law. And we're going to go into detail with it because I tell you what, it's going to be so exciting when you find out about how Islam, the spiritual laws of Islam incorporate things as simple as whether you believe in God or not. Well, it's time for us to take a break, and when we get back from the break, we'll continue, inshallah.
All praise to Allah.
An evil is approaching. A gap has appeared in the barrier of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, like this. This is part of a hadith that was spoken over 1400 years ago. And if it was near then, imagine how near it is now. My name is Muhammad Tim Humble, and in this series we explore the hadith of Sahih Muslim that speak of the trials and tribulations that are to come in the end of days.
Know and understand the signs of the final day to increase your taqwa and protect your iman in end of days. Next on Peace TV. Analyze your mistakes.
Have you ever tried to overcome your anger?
Realize your weakness.
Do you find it difficult to control your tongue?
Diagnose your moral sickness.
Have you ever felt that your intentions are corrupt?
Learn the steps essential to nourish our souls in Purification of the Soul. Every Thursday at 11:30 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12:30 p.m. UK on Peace TV.
All praise to Allah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome back We're talking about exciting stuff here today. We're talking about the political system within Islam. We started talking about it last episode, and now we're continuing with it today, inshallah. And we'll hopefully, inshallah, get through most of it. But there's so many points that we have to stop on because they're important. We spoke before the break about that man-made laws and divine laws are very different in dealing with the political structure within Islam. And we said that when we look at man-made laws, it doesn't matter what your spiritual views are in man-made laws. It doesn't even come into the equation. Perhaps maybe some examples we might think in history where somebody was accused, like there were 3 young men in America, they were accused of satanic murders. And they got sentenced to jail, and then later on they found that they weren't Satanists in the first place. Yes, certain times when the hype is going on about things like that, then they'll use religion and law. But generally it's thrown out. No one cares whether you're a Buddhist or a Hindu or a Hare Krishna or a Muslim or an atheist or an agnostic when it comes to a court case. Unless it's been pushed up in the media for some reason. Then it will mean something. But generally speaking, it's not part of it. In Islam, the whole divine law, the whole political system with Islam depends on what you believe. It's part of the equation of the legal system. It's part of the equation of our political system. If you were in war and you're about to fight with somebody and you go into battle and that person says, wait, I want to tell you something. You say, what? And they say, I want to embrace Islam. You have to stop fighting with that person. Because that person's spiritual importance is his legal right to stop fighting because he wants to take Shahada. These laws of Islam are so deep and so grounded in real depth that it makes man-made laws look simple. It makes it look stupid. When you compare the two against each other, divine law would always be better. Not just because I say so. I've given you explanations. I've shown you, I've given some examples compared to what human laws are like, where they frickle, changing, suit only a certain group of people, where we look at divine laws, how they have your best interest at heart. If I was tuning in for the first time and I'm sitting at home now and I saw this is what Islam holds, I would be running to the nearest mosque right now. And I'd be saying to that Imam, please tell me more about the Islamic political system. I heard this guy, some white guy from South Africa talking about it. Tell me more about it. I'd be so excited. I wish someone had told me this when I was not a Muslim 11 years ago, 12 years ago, in 2001. So where we look at man-made laws, we see that man-made laws are an act of an election, an act of a group of people deciding what the laws will be. I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. In my country, again, it's always good to speak about what you know, not what you don't know. In my country, I know what's going on, so I'm speaking about what I see going on there. There was a new political system came in. The old regime was kicked out, and a new regime was given power. When they came in, they changed everything, but over the years. First thing they did was they changed the political structure, who is in charge of the country. Then they started to change the names of the streets in the country. So if the street was called West Street, then they called it after some political person's name. In fact, it was actually called Mahatma Gandhi Street. Then they started to change the currency. So the notes, instead of having whatever they had on before, they now had the political president, or they'd have the president of South Africa on the notes. But they started to change it. And so what we find with man-made laws is they're very fickle. They change with who's ever in power. If this political party is in power, all the street names change and all the banknotes change. But when somebody else comes into power, the names will change again, and they'll have to change all those street names again, and they'll have to change all those notes again. But in Islam, we find that that does not happen. The divine laws of Allah remain constant throughout. We don't find that the names start to change and the notes start to change and all that. All remains the same. We have the same ethical and the same moral values and the same legal code that was around from the beginning and will remain so right to the end of time. Nothing changes. It remains the same. When we look at, for example, if you had to deal with rape, the legal system in the world today, the man-made laws, are fickle. Before you used to get the death sentence, then it became a 10-year sentence. Then the next power came in and said it's a 2-year sentence. Another one gave you a suspended sentence. Other ones sent you to a psychologist. Those laws changed the whole time. What is the law of Allah? What are the divine laws? They will remain the same where they were for the first man on earth, even until the last person that walked on this planet. The law will remain the same. They do not change because they're divine laws. They're constant. They remain the same. Yes, there are different instances where you'd have to look at that in a different light. There's not one size fits all, because that would be a silly system to have. This is why we have to look at all the things that came before it. We've already mentioned before how many things are considered. Your spiritual life is considered when passing a simple thing like a sentence. So when we look, we see that laws change constantly. Political systems within man-made society change constantly. But the laws of Allah remain constant. They are not allowed to be changed unless Allah Himself tells people, either through His messengers. We can just simply go to the nearest bookshop. We can go to the library. We can go to a mosque or your next door neighbor who you know is a Muslim, and you can ask them for a copy of the Quran, and this book will tell you all the things that I'm telling you about. Get yourself a copy of this book. It will give you the divine system to run your life upon. The principles of this life should be run on the laws of Allah and the political systems of Islam that we should have. If we look throughout the history of mankind, you'll see whenever people choose to turn away from Allah, they only have problems in their country. They only have problems in this life that they live. They have a life of rebellion because they have turned away from the laws of Allah. Soon as America and Britain and other countries like Germany and France and all the other countries tried to separate religion and politics from each other, what happened? You saw rebellion taking place. Then you started seeing pride and arrogance entering into the system. You saw that people began to find another path for their country, and then you saw economic collapses. Then you saw divisions within their countries. This is simply because they tried to separate Allah from the equation, to drive out God from the equation. Those countries that kept Allah in their equation grew. Those countries became stronger. And so we have to be very, very careful that we do not follow the shaitan and follow his system of running government. I'm not saying government's all shaitan, but I'm saying shaitan has a government as well. And he wants people to break the laws of Allah. He wants people to go as far away from Sharia as possible. He wants people to move away from the economic system. We are greedy people. It's in our nature to be greedy. I remember when I went on Hajj, we were in these tents and we had caterers that were catering for us. And I have never been more embarrassed in my life, I don't think. When the food came out on that table, and there were about 500 people that were in our group, they ravaged that table. There was not a crumb left on that table. It was a sight that I never want to remember seeing again. It was like these people had never eaten in their life before. It's just a Hajj. It's not like you're not going to eat again. You've just done a little walk. And some people are like that. We just want to ravage everything. We don't care who's in the way. We're going to tear everything down to get what I want, what I need. And we don't care that Allah said we cannot do that. We don't care what anyone says. We don't care that we're not supposed to make interest. We want money, and we want money now. We don't care that we're supposed to care for the poor and the sick and the needy as long as I have what I want. And this is the danger. This is what shaitan will like to do in our lives, like to tell us all these lies, so that we don't follow the system. Think, brothers and sisters. Think, those of you at home. Think carefully. Be a person who wants to follow the laws of Allah. Follow the concepts of obedience to Allah that Allah has given us. That we want to be people that surely want to reach out to truth and investigate the religion of Islam. Maybe you're a born Muslim. Maybe you're a revert to Islam. I don't know what your story is. Whatever your story, I don't care if you're a Muslim or you're not a Muslim. If you're a born Muslim or not a born Muslim. If you're a revert or not a revert. You need to follow the Sharia. You need to have a look. You owe it to yourself to look at it. Don't be one of those people when people come to you and say, you're a Muslim, right? And you say, yes. And they say, you follow the Sharia. And you go, no, we don't need Sharia. I've never even heard of that stuff. What's that? Is it something you eat? No, you know that you've been the person who's ashamed of the Sharia. Don't be ashamed of the Sharia. The Sharia brings life. It brings hope. It brings a future for you. It brings a future for the whole of humanity, whether you're a Christian or a Jew. Doesn't make any difference. The Sharia actually protects you. The Sharia is there to help you. Sharia doesn't only protect the Muslim. The Sharia is there to protect you as a non-Muslim if you're watching. It's something you should be happy to embrace. I get so disappointed when people say to me they want nothing to do with the political system of Islam. They haven't looked at how beautiful the political system of Islam is. They've heard it from YouTube. some angry person who claims that he was a Muslim and then left Islam and became a Christian. And when you actually do research, you find the person was never a Muslim to start with. That he was actually born in a Christian family, and he comes from a Christian family. And then he claims, no, he was a Muslim who converted. And I'm sure many of you know who I'm talking about. Well, that's all the time we have today to talk about the political system of Islam. And this is one of the most beautiful episodes because I really feel passionate about it. We need to look at the political system of Islam and be proud about it. Next time, inshallah, we'll be coming to the end of the series. I think we've got maybe one, maybe two more episodes to go, and then the series is ended. Well, that's all the time we have. So from me, Areeb Islam, until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم.
Glory be to Allah, all praise to Allah. There is no God but Allah. Allah is great, all power and